What makes us resilient? I think there's two parts of that. There's reacting to what has happened, and then there's planning for what's going to happen, what's going to come up for you. And so my story is about both of those things. And I'm going to talk to you about my personal story with breast cancer, which really is my personal life story, because it's not just disease that happens when you get cancer, but it also touches on my marriage and my family and my business and my finances. And I'm going to talk to you about that today, but then I'm also going to talk to you about a little bit of self-care and what you can do to make sure that you're taking the best care of your body, and that if you have any questions, I'm certainly not a medical person. I come from a medical family, but I am a lawyer, and so my lawyer brain tells me to tell you that I am not a medical professional. And that obviously if you ever have anything concerning with your body, you need to see a physician, but we will get into a little bit more of what to keep an eye out for. So is the first slide available? Oh, did I touch it? Probably. There we go. Okay, so that is 2016 me. That is the day that I was scheduled for my mammogram. I was 33 in that picture. I had 2 kids, ages 2 and 5. And the really interesting part of that picture is that is the physical shell of somebody who looked like I had everything together and everything was going really great in my life. I was a partner in a law firm. I was billing all kinds of hours. I was really, in my mind, important because I had a lot of work to do and a lot of people were seeking out my services. I had been married for 9 years at that point. My husband, I mean, I have to brag on him. He's like he's amazing. He's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. I fell in love with him almost the first time I saw him. And so I had this beautiful husband, I had beautiful kids, I had a really successful job, and I was miserable. I was portraying this exterior to people that I was okay and that I had everything together, but really I was probably drinking too much and eating too little and working too hard and drinking way too many diet sodas, and that was not a happy person. And in particular, that week was really special for me, in a way. I had decided earlier in the month that I would go on and start my own law practice, which is now Element Law Group. And I had done that because I had this dream of changing the way that families transition through divorce. And that's still my dream, and that's still a huge part of who I am and why I'm here. But I had been really close with the people that were my partners, and what was supposed to be a really safe, kind of gentle, amicable separation from my partnership turned into a very, very, very ugly and painful and relationship changing forever breakup. And so, hurtful things were said. It turned into somebody that I had considered family wanting nothing more to do with me. That all happened on the heels of my husband and I coming to a realization that even though we felt fiercely, our love was fierce for each other, always had been, but we had gotten to this point because I had put everything that I had into my business. And we had gotten to a point where when I looked at him, we didn't have that connection anymore. It was by far one of the scariest things. I mean, this is a person who's my best friend, who I guess I feel like everything's okay in the world as long as he's in it. And all of a sudden, all of that safety and security had fallen away from us. And so he had headed into the woods. He's a stay-at-home dad. And our thought was, you go into the woods and spend some time with just yourself so that you can kind of reconnect and become that person that I need again. So on the heels of this huge breakup in my firm and this huge uncertainty in my marriage, we actually had to move. Our law firm was supposed to take 30 days. We were given 30 days, and we were actually had to be out of there in 3 days. So we had to move everything and do everything. Meanwhile, I was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, which I didn't parent my kids from dusk till dawn. My husband did that. And not that I don't know how to parent my kids, but it's different to step into that role when you're used to being home all the time. So I'm facing this onslaught of really, really difficult, nasty things. And I remember sitting at a stoplight and thinking, well, at least I have my health. I don't know if it's because I skipped some meals moving furniture, or if the stress got to me and I just lost a little bit of weight, but about 3 days into my husband's trip, I felt this lump, and I swear it came up overnight. Wasn't there the day before, but I felt this lump. So I called my physician's office and said, okay, I have this lump, I feel like I should come in. And she said, okay, we can get you in like 25 days. I'll come back to that. And in my mind, I thought, well, okay, I've been taught as a daughter of an ER doctor, I don't know, how many doctors' kids do we have in here? A few, right? So you know to like take ibuprofen and rub dirt on it. I was taught that like you never react. If anything, you underreact. You certainly never overreact if you react at all. And so, but still something in my mind was like, I feel like I should probably see someone earlier, because I was thinking maybe it's a cyst or something. I certainly wasn't thinking it was cancer. Well, I went to my doctor, who is one of the least reactive people. I collect these people in my life, I think. I was on my way to my appointment in this picture after my husband had resurfaced from the woods, and we had spent kind of a tumultuous night apart the night before. And when this picture was taken, we had decided that we were separated. And that if you knew how wonderful my husband was and how strong our relationship is, you would think that that is a sentence that I would never say, and I'm surprised to have said it. But that is a result of where life took us, with having little kids and this business and not paying enough attention to each other and even to ourselves. So I'm in the changing room and I thought, I'm going to take this picture because when my doctor examined the lump, as cool as he was in front of me, he said, okay, we're just going to schedule it for a mammogram. And then if it's anything in the mammogram, they'll take you in for an ultrasound. So I know this. He says, don't worry, we'll see what's on the schedule. And I hear him go out into the hall and direct his nurse to get me in ASAP. So this is right before my mammogram, which the team at the hospital didn't realize that I knew the information, that if they were sending me to an ultrasound, that wasn't great. So they shuttle me off to the mammogram, I get the mammogram, and they're like, you know, just for funsies, we're gonna do an ultrasound. So I'm like, okay. So at this point in my life, if I can have it, sorry. What I like to kind of say about it is that when everything demands your attention, nothing gets it. So it's that feeling of being spread so thin and doing so much and saying yes to too many things that you're not really rooted in anything. And that's certainly where I was in my life at that point. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the breast cancer statistics. And I hate it when people read to me what's on a slide, but I can't memorize these. I have to tell you before I read these, actually, that this is the first time I've ever done this presentation alongside a proactive kind of health talk on breast cancer. So when I was putting this together, this ended up being a really challenging presentation for me to do, because these aren't numbers. This is my life. And so when you see that breast cancer is the most common cancer among women, sorry, I should have proofed it a little closer, but it was hard to go through. So it accounts for nearly 30% of newly diagnosed cancers. There's one new breast cancer diagnosis every 2 minutes in the United States. So I don't know, I've been talking for 3 people to have been diagnosed. 268,000 new cases for women annually, and then more than 42,000 men and women die from breast cancer this year. And I have to say, as a cancer kid, which is somebody who's been diagnosed under the age of 40, I've gotten to know a lot of other cancer kids. I've gone to camps where I've learned to surf. I've gone to camps where I've rock climbed and I've had these amazing experiences, but I've also attended many, many, many funerals. More than 154,000 women are living with metastatic breast cancer. Metastatic means it's stage 4, it's gone into another part of your body other than your lymph nodes. I was diagnosed as stage 3C, which is just the step before stage 4. If we need to, I have to put a plug in that we have to be giving a lot more attention to research on metastatic breast cancer. I'm sure there is at least one or several of you in this room who have been affected by somebody with Mets. If we cure Mets, we cure this awful disease. And so when you're thinking about pledging your dollars in the month of October, this Pinktober, think about metastatic breast cancer. There are more than 3.8 million breast cancer survivors in the US. 1 in 8, so what are these, 8 tops or 6 tops? Just guess, about 1 person at your table will be diagnosed with breast cancer. It's the leading cause of cancer death in women around the world, and every 50 seconds somewhere in the world, someone dies from breast cancer. So that's 1,700 people per day. So young women and breast cancer. This was a slide that was really hard for me to put together because I realized how extraordinary it was for me to be diagnosed. About 5% of breast cancers occur in women under age 40. And so I'm really special. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death. This is the scary one. Death from any type of cancer among women ages 20 to 39. Genetic factors can put women at higher risk. So have you guys heard of the term BRCA1, BRCA2? Those are the genes that you inherit that put you at higher risk or very high risk, depending, of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. They're gene mutations. There are special challenges that happen when you are diagnosed with breast cancer when you're young. For me, I had just committed my life savings to starting a business and to building out an office. And so and my husband's a stay-at-home dad, like as I said, and so all of our income was dependent on me. And I was all of a sudden really sick. And I hadn't thought about disability insurance. Fortunately, I thought about life insurance. But you're not really in a great place in your 30s to have to take on an 18-month long or longer illness. And so bankruptcy is much, much higher for women of my age facing cancer, and divorce. So let's talk about some of the warning signs, because I want to leave you here with some knowledge. I'm going to leave you with something to think about and something hopefully later on to feel as well. But the warning signs of breast cancer are not the same. The most common signs are a change in the look or feel of the breast, and that's compared to one or the other, or the one on its own, and a change in look or feel of the nipple or nipple discharge. If you have any of these warning signs described above, see a physician. And I love this graphic because it tells you everything you need to know, but it's not gross. In a way, it's a way that like kind of can draw you in. And so I actually have some notes on this. So I want to give you some time to look at this. In most cases, even though some of these things look really scary, these are not signs of cancer. Especially I want to know that breast pain is not typically a sign of breast cancer. This is all covered by if something weird is going on with your body. If you have a question about anything, early detection, go and talk to your physician. But so breast lumps and bumps. Breast tissue is naturally lumpy and bumpy, okay? It has a bumpy texture. Some more than others. There's probably women who have had mammograms who know that they have lumpy breasts. That's just part of the deal. But if a lump is hard and unlike the others, or if there's a change, then you need to see someone. If a new lump comes up, or especially if you feel something different, that's when you want to go and see somebody. I actually went to my physician. I was diagnosed in February, and I went to my physician in November. And I complained of a host of symptoms. Not all of them were cancer related, but I complained of a host of symptoms. And one of the symptoms was I had discharge from one of my nipples. and she diagnosed me with having a sensitive brain. Yeah. That's another issue that everyone in this room is going to have to face because you're female. And the younger you are, the harder it can be, but it really kind of affects all women. Women's statistically are taken far less seriously by healthcare providers than men. And so what this has taught me over being treated in small hospitals and national hospitals is that you have to be your own advocate. You have to ask questions until you get answers that answer the question and make sense to you and that you can move on from. So what she meant by sensitive brain was that I was being somewhat hysterical, I guess. My cancer was really aggressive. If I had been diagnosed, I try not to think about that too much because I really am. Cancer is one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life. It was definitely one of the most challenging, most difficult, and most painful, but it's also one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life. So I try not to think about what it would have looked like if I had been diagnosed in stage 1 or stage 2, but making sure that your questions are answered is super important here. So more than 90% of women diagnosed with breast cancer at the earliest stage survive their disease for at least 5 years, compared with around 15% of women diagnosed with the most advanced stage of disease. And again, it's another one of those heartbreaking statistics, but it's another reason to get really familiar with what's going on up here. And it's not gross, it's not sexual, it's everything to do with your health. This is a major body part. Breast cancer is a super common thing, and you want to know and be thinking about it, everyone in this room. Because I'd rather be in that 90% if I could be. So let's talk about an early detection plan. Here's some action for you. Clinical breast examination every 3 years from ages 20 to 39, then every year thereafter. I don't know, why not just give it every year, because it takes like 5 minutes in the doctor's office, so when you're getting your annual, just be like, hey, check it out. Monthly breast self-examinations beginning at age 20. This is not scientific at all. This is not to be taken in any way scientific, but everyone I know found their lump in the shower. And that's because, you're running your hands over, you're feeling around for there. So if the shower is a place that you want to do that, perfect. Baseline mammogram by the age of 40. Do not be scared of a mammogram. I only got to have it once. I didn't think it was that bad. I realize some people think it's terrible, but let me tell you how bad, like chemo and radiation and all of that. It's just get your mammograms. Mammogram screening every 1 to 2 years for women 40 to 49, depending on previous findings. Some of you with lumpier breast tissue will be in there more often. That's good, that's fine. Mammogram every year for women 50 and older. A personal calendar to record your self-examinations, mammograms, and doctor's appointments. And a low-fat diet, regular exercise, and no smoking or drinking. I hate that one because I'm like, well, I just want to do all this stuff, but really we do have to, the more we take care of ourselves. And I was really lucky. When I was diagnosed, I had competed in a half Ironman just a few months before. And so I was going into it with an abundance of health, if you can think about it that way. So turning over now to the idea of resilience as in response to what happens to you. One of my favorite quotes is, fear of suffering is worse than suffering itself. I had to learn when I was diagnosed how to live with the here and now. You hear it said so many times, there's nothing you can do about yesterday. Tomorrow isn't here yet. So you have to live in the present. This modus operandi gets driven home when you don't know from minute to minute what's going on with you, if you're gonna be okay or not. I unfortunately had a terrible reaction to chemo. I had to be on very aggressive chemo, very close together were my treatments. Usually people get 3 weeks, I only got 2 weeks. It was really, really hard. And I ended up getting so sick that I couldn't get my last infusion. I ended up with a huge rash all over my arms and face. I was super bloated. I had an out of control bacterial infection. And because of the way a port was placed in my heart, which is what delivers chemotherapy to your body, I developed a golf ball sized blood clot in my heart. And so when I was, say, in Cleveland Clinic dealing with the blood clot in my heart, they didn't know what to do. It's really kind of jarring when you're with the world expert, whose name was Brian Griffith. It's great. He's Irish, he's wonderful. Griffin or Griffith, whatever. Anyway, he was like, well, I don't know. You could let it just hang out in there and see if it goes to your brain. Or we could go in and take your heart out of your body, stop that, and get the clot out. So it was like really tough decisions. But so when you're laying in Cleveland Clinic and you're thinking about, do I get open heart surgery, which they were all kind of weirdly jazzed about, and I was like, this may be normal for you, this is not a normal day for me. You can only take what you have right there in that minute. And the only thing, one of the best mantras I've learned is like, I'm okay right now. And most of the time, no matter what is happening to you, with some very few exceptions, if you ask yourself in a moment of overwhelm or panic or grief, am I okay right now? Yeah, you're exchanging the oxygen in your lungs, your heart's beating, you know. There's actually a really low threshold to being human that we can exist at and be mostly okay. And I'm not saying that these were like glory days of my life. These were some of the hardest, darkest days of my life. But even then, and I guess I can say that with more from being at a distance from it where I am now and looking back and being able to say, like, those were really hard, but at the time, like, I was mostly okay. But that was a choice that I had to make. And that's another point of resilience, is that all throughout whatever you're going through, and everybody in here has been through something. That I know for sure. Everyone in here has a story. And you wouldn't be in this room if you hadn't made a decision or a series of decisions to bring yourself back into this room and to become the person that you are today. And then today, you have a series more questions that you get to answer about who you want to be right now and tomorrow. And then tomorrow you're going to wake up and you get that same series of questions. And so I had some decisions to make. I had a decision to make about what kind of wife or what kind of relationship I was going to have with my husband. I had a decision about what kind of mother I was going to be. I had a decision about how I was going to run my business. And fortunately, I'm still here. But this is one of my quotes. If you're trying to fulfill someone else's expectations of you, you will fail. You are not good at being anyone else. Said in another way, the positive way that we normally hear that is like, be yourself, you know? It's like, what does that mean? Well, at least just start with, stop trying to be anyone else. And that was the cool thing about cancer for me. I felt like somebody handed me this shiny permission slip to say, go out and be your own person, go do your own thing. Because it doesn't matter what this lawyer thinks of you, or that judge thinks of you, or that client thinks of you. You just go be yourself. And I'm still working on that, because now I'm here and I'm like, probably going to stay around for a while. And so I have to deal with other people's expectations all over again, except I have to remember every now and then when I get a scare of my condition or something like that, I think, God, whose life am I living? Just mine. Just mine. So I talked about I'm still here. Spoiler alert. But I'm not here. I honestly, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for these really incredible, amazing things that happened to me. Part of that was just these incredible outpouring of love and support from friends and family, and the one that really blows me away is strangers. Strangers are people that you had tucked it back into the recesses of your mind. There are people in your life who get what you're going through if you have the courage to share it with them. And so not everybody is oriented like I am too. I created a blog, okay, Katie Over Cancer, and I wrote about everything, and I still do. Not everyone's going to be like that. But vulnerability is a choice of stepping towards someone. It's a choice towards connection. And so in my life, because I chose that vulnerability repeatedly, and I said what I was scared about, and I said what was hard for me, and I said what I was grieving, and the things that really, really hurt, I ended up having hundreds of people, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world reaching out to me, telling me either their stories or just a note of support, or telling me that something that I said landed with them. And can I tell you what a gift, what an incredible gift that is to know, and I hope it happens for at least one of you today, but the gift of knowing that something that I've said, something that I've put out into the world, lands with somebody else and gives them something they need. I mean, that for me is like, that's the point of living. So I started on this journey of love. This is a cross-country team in North Dakota, and they're all wearing Katie Over Cancer sweatshirts, and we showed up at this big cross-country meet, and there was pink everywhere, and I will never, ever, ever forget that. Even the boys were wearing pink. I mean, it was really cool, but it's just a visual representation of what happened to me during my experience. So we can't help everyone. I know that, and I know that we're all limited on time, and I know we're limited on resources, but everyone can help someone. And if you do the math, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. If we all take care of each other, then we're all okay. And that's the only reason that I'm standing up here right now, is to let you know that whatever thing you're wading through, whatever the hard thing is, or the scary thing is, or the sad thing is, like, you're not doing this alone. This is my writing, Katie Over Cancer. So what cancer really dialed in for me, besides this incredible connection of love and vulnerability and compassion, is one of my favorite poets. Do you guys know who Lin-Manuel Miranda is? Yes. Shame on you if you don't. He's the writer of Hamilton, the critically acclaimed musical. And you should go and listen to all of the lyrics right now after today, because it's an inspired piece of work. But he says, what is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. And so one of the things that has become my life goal is to create something that outlives me. And that's where I feel like sharing things with you all helps me accomplish that. So really, it's a selfish journey that I'm on right now, is I want to live in a piece of all of you. And then my little life means something. And my life with my work with Element of changing the way that families transition through divorce, that means everything to me, because I know I'm sparing a child or mother or father some of the pain that they would otherwise face. So here's my vulnerability. It is an invitation for connection. So what happened with my marriage? Well, I got cancer, and we had to look at each other and decide, what do we want our life to look like? And I feel really, I don't know how that would have ended had cancer not happened. And it has nothing to do with, I mean, my husband is this fantastic man, but we just didn't know how to come back to each other. And cancer gave us that bridge to come back together. And so now we still work at it. We make that decision every day to come back to each other. And we are, like, happily together. This is me super sick. This is a picture that my daughter took. That's what I looked like for most of the time. So that awful picture on the left, that's what I looked like after chemo. Lots of, I don't look like myself. Radiation, hospital stays. But beauty follows broken. This is another one of my favorites. So the beauty in my relationship is that we were broken, and we decided to heal, and we decided to be together, and we decided to love and cherish one another, even when the route for doing that wasn't clear. The most beautiful times in my life have been around cancer. The love, the pure love, has been incredible. There's my honey in the middle. I was pretty determined to beat this thing. That's my baby. That's my oldest daughter, who, that was hard, having kids that little and having to have her watch me go through this and not having the language for it. That was hard. But talk about tough. That kid is resilient. That's my second baby. There they are. They're so little. I remember thinking they were so big, and now I look at them and they're so little. I was very cancer-y in that picture, but they were okay. So what I would leave you with is be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. If you're able to take care of yourself, suddenly, magically, space opens up to be able to take care of other people. And you can't do that unless you're taking care of yourself. That's one of the biggest lessons that I learned, and that's what it allowed me to come back into my marriage and back into my family. You live what you create. Be intentional about what you create. Be intentional about your choices and your actions and your words. And there's my happy ending. Although it's not the end, right? We were gonna have a wonderful, fabulous life together. He shaved his head real short, like mine. Yeah, he's a doll. I heard someone say, oh, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, no, he's great. And now I have a happy story to tell you at the end of this. I always grieved with cancer. They say, you're not going to have another baby because it just ruins all of your internal processing. And we, both my husband and I came from families of 3, and we had always intended to have 3 babies. And hearing the news that we wouldn't have any more, it took me 2 years to get pregnant with my first child, 18 months with my second. I'm not a good pregnant person. So we knew, okay, it's not going to happen. And I grieved, and I cried, and I sold baby things, and it totally broke me. And we were scheduled for a hysterectomy because my cancer has a tendency to wander. My doctor had to go on sabbatical, so they scheduled the hysterectomy a month later than it was supposed to happen. And in getting ready for that, in that 1 month, I got pregnant with our 3rd child, who's a boy. And he just turned 18 months